お前はどこまで見えている。俺の死に様か。
The sky lost its usual color and became bright red. The feeling that he, too, is not sweet, like all the shinobi dying under him. Screams full of pain and despair are heard. The huge nine-tailed fox is destroying the village, and no one can cope with it, no one except. We must hold out a little longer, the fourth will be here soon. The cry of the third Hokage is heard. A few moments later, an inhumanly powerful roar was heard. That's right. Kyubi noticed the current Hokage on the rock and decided to destroy the threat. But the fourth is also difficult. He, in the blink of an eye, moved the bijou bomb aimed at him with his new technique. No wonder he was nicknamed the Yellow Lightning of Konoha. Summoning technique. You know what to do, Gamabunta. Having waited for the summoned toad to nod, he left to deal with an equally dangerous enemy. About. Have you really come, Namikaze Minato? The masked man exclaimed mockingly. Answer the question, are you Madara Uchiha? The fourth should have heard the answer. There was applause, but then died down. Yes, the voice became serious and firm. Kushina, hold him back while I prepare everything for sealing. Do you want to make our daughter a Jinchuriki? Do you want to doom her to suffering? Do you want her to be hated? Don't you love your daughter at all? The red-haired girl said the last sentence much more quietly. Honey, I love Naruko and you very much. You are my light. But I have no choice. Our daughter will grow up to be a beautiful kunoichi. I believe in her, she can do it. Naruko, be strong. I love you very much, remember that. Said the scarlet-haired Haim, pierced along with her husband by the fox's claw. I too love you very much. Seal of 8 and trigrams. Hokage-sama and Kushina-sama are dead. A child has been found. Most likely, she is a new Jinchuriki, said the masked Danushnik. Clear. We'll have an honorable funeral tomorrow. We will all miss them, said Sarutobi Hiruzen, taking the child. A beautiful girl about 12 to 13 years old, although in fact she was only 7, walked along the streets of Konoha with a cheerful smile. She had golden hair, like the sun itself, reaching to her lower back, large blue eyes, clear as the sky itself, tanned skin, and on her face there were 6 symmetrical stripes, 3 on each cheek. Her gaze was very thoughtful and directed to the sky. Did something happen, Naruko? The voice of her personal red-haired sizzler rang out. No, Ku. I'm just wondering why Fugaku-san asked me to come today. Are you going to the clan of these red-eyed people again? You're still the same, Ku. Certainly. After all, I am the great and terrible. Yes, the blonde cut him off sharply. We heard, we know, we passed by. Suddenly Naruko stopped and laughed loudly. Apparently, the girl remembered the first time they met. Flashback, 3 years ago. Poor Naruko got beaten up again. But today is her birthday. The girl lay unconscious on the wet asphalt. Her eyes are closed, and if it weren't for the rhythmic heaving of her chest, you would think she was dead. Meanwhile, in the subconscious, the little blonde stood in the middle of the huge room and looked around. She had absolutely no idea where she was now. Suddenly the candles lit up, and Naru saw a large cage in which 2 scarlet eyes with vertical pupils were burning. They repulsed, but at the same time fascinated the little lady. So this means what a little thing I got as a jailer, a booming voice said from behind the cage. The creature came into the light, and now one could see a huge red fox with 9 tails, whose eyes burned with hatred. Who are you? Naru asked the first thing that came to her mind. You do not know me? The fox growled. In response, a negative shake of the head. I am the great and terrible 9-tailed demon fox, Kyubi no Yoko. The girl carefully examined the fox for several minutes. But then she asked the question again. But what's strange is still without a drop of fear or uncertainty in her voice. The fox was hoping that she would now run away from him in fear, but that's how she did it. "What is your name? Are you deaf?" Ninetails began to get angry. "I already said it. I'm Q. I asked for a name, not a nickname." The blondie shouted at him. Well, she didn't like it when people didn't understand her the first time. The fox stared at this girl in bewilderment and, not quite understanding what he was doing, answered. "Kurama." "Kurama," the blonde repeated. "Nice to meet you. My name is Naruko. Let's be friends?" Hubie stared at her like she was crazy. "Girl." The fox suddenly became enraged. "Do you even understand who I am? I am the one who destroyed Konoha. I am the one who killed many of its inhabitants, including your parents. I am the strongest of all the tailed creatures. I am the one who terrifies everyone. And you still want to be friends with me?" "Yes." The girl's answer completely unsettled him. Meanwhile she continued. "I see pain in your eyes, the same as mine. The pain of loneliness. People simply did not understand you and considered you a demon. And because of this you suffered. I'm just like you. So? Let's be friends?" The fox, with a slack jaw, stuttered, said. "Why, yes." The blonde smiled widely, and the following thoughts were spinning in Kurama's head. "Rikudo, maybe she is the person you were talking about?" But suddenly Naruko began to disappear from her subconscious. The last thing she heard was, "Just wish and you will be here." Since then, they often communicated with each other, and the fox developed respect for this unusual person. A little later, the blonde asked the fox to train her, to which he readily agreed. After spending time together, their friendship grew into brotherly feelings. And flashback. And now, emerging from her memories, the blonde noticed that she was approaching the huge gates of the Uchiha quarter. Calmly passing through them, she began to move towards the house of the head of the clan. On the way, everyone turned around and looked at her with respect. Why? The answer is simple. So far, only the red-eyed quarter knew the real Naruko, smart, calm, brave, friendly, and incredibly strong. She, too, to some extent, could be considered a genius. No, well, judge for yourself. At the age of 7, have the Jonin level and be a master of the seals of your clan, as well as spacetime techniques. After all, she has the blood of a true Uzumaki. The fourth's daughter also knew about her parents. But she didn't throw hysterics, didn't cry, didn't blame everyone. No, she just smiled sweetly and said, "I don't blame you for anything, Kurama." "What about the parents? I always knew that they were real heroes." "Okay, let's move on to our Naru's campaign." The young Uzumaki politely knocked on the door and waited for it to be opened for her. And then a sweet black-haired woman of about 30, with onyx-colored eyes, appeared on the threshold. She smiled at the guest and invited her into the house. Mikoto led her to the table and sat her down next to the rest of the family. At the head sat Fugaku. It was a gloomy man, about the same age as his wife. But his serious face cleared up as soon as he saw the blonde. To his right sat Mikoto. On the left sat his eldest son, Itachi Uchiha. Naruko always felt like he was somehow different from the rest of the clan. This guy was 4 years older than her and was considered the genius of the clan. He was never arrogant, and you could often see a smile on his face. He liked to joke and, together with his friend Shursui, arrange some kind of prank, and then quickly run away, blaming his clanmates for everything. The blonde and the brunette managed to become good friends and, despite the fact that he was an ANBU, they remained approximately equal in strength. Next was Sasuke Uchiha, Itachi's younger brother. The little Uchiha was her age, although you couldn't tell from them. This boy will soon enter the academy, and, in principle, Naru too, but old man third told her to train rather than sit at her desk. But, let's leave our friends for a while and let them eat in peace. All? Have you eaten? That is great. Here the father of the family decided to take the floor, but old man third told her to train better than sit at her desk. But, let's leave our friends for a while and let them eat in peace. All? Have you eaten? That is great. Here the father of the family decided to take the floor, but old man third told her to train better than sit at her desk. But, let's leave our friends for a while and let them eat in peace. All? Have you eaten? That is great. Here the father of the family decided to take the floor. Naru, you know that your father and I were on friendly terms? Of course, the failed Namikaze nodded her head. So, the elder Uchiha began. Even before you were born, your father and I made an agreement that if a girl was born to the Namikaze Uzumaki family, and as soon as circumstances allowed, our children would be engaged and married. I am, of course, very sorry that Kushina and Minato will not be able to attend their daughter's wedding, but I want at least one of my friend's wishes to be fulfilled. So, Itachi, Naruko, you will get married in a week. Yeah. It was a huge shock for everyone except Fugaku. He thanked the gods that Naru and Ito were calm children and would not destroy everything here. The most they will do is... What? A stunning, powerful cry rang out throughout the entire quarter of the great clan. I've already said everything, Makoto answered for the 1000th time. This dress suits you very well, and we will not change it. And period. In front of the mirror stood a blonde with long hair and sky blue eyes, who was dressed in a white dress with 3/4 sleeves and a beautiful neckline that well emphasized her figure and breasts of the first size. The girl herself didn't understand why she agreed so easily, and Itachi let her down. She, of course, was indignant at first, but since most of her character was the same as Minato's, she quickly calmed down. She was drawn to Itachi and she couldn't understand it. She didn't tell anyone about her thoughts except the fox, to which he only laughed. By the way, Kurama reacted very violently to the news about the marriage of his Jinchuriki to an Uchiha. At first, he began to beat his head against the wall with the thought of quickly waking up from this nightmare, then he threw a tantrum, and then ordered her to finally create a seal that would block the fox's consciousness from the cursed eyes, which she was capable of and would not have caused much difficulties. 2 days later, the seal was ready and tested. The fox was pleased with the purchase and gave his permission for the marriage. The wedding is tomorrow and she is very worried. Okay, now the most important thing for Naru is not to fall on his heels. Strange, isn't it? A wonderful shinobi, a smart and dexterous girl, a friendly person, but she can't walk in heels. But it's okay, learn. The next day, the entire Uchiha clan was excited. Of course, today is the wedding of the eldest son of the clan head and the harem of the Uzumaki clan. Only people who knew the real Naruko were invited to the wedding: the third Hokage, the old man Tuchi from the ramen shop, his daughter Iam, the entire red-eyed clan, and, oddly enough, the elders and Danzo. By the way, about the latter, they also respected her, because they knew how strong she was, and at that age. Therefore, they did not try to survive it, but they could not do anything about the hatred of the villagers, because they did not know the whole truth. But let's get back to the holiday. Everything was ready a long time ago. A beautiful arch in the center of the block, near which a nervous Itachi was already standing. Life hasn't been easy for him this week either. He, like Naruko, was gnawed by doubts. He doesn't seem to want this wedding, because he considers it stupid, but on the other hand, he is glad that this cheerful blonde will be his wife. What is this feeling? He couldn't find the answer to his question. And now, looking forward and seeing how his father was leading a beautiful blonde, he realized that he was not at all against a wedding with this particular girl. Almost the same thoughts were spinning in Naruko's head. Looking at the altar, the girl decided to cast aside all doubts and simply walked towards her destiny. And now they stand next to each other and look into each other's eyes. The words of the clergyman fell on deaf ears of this couple. They looked into the eyes and tried to find the answer to the question that had been tormenting them for so long. But suddenly a question was asked that made the young people shudder. Do you agree, Uchiha Itachi, to take this girl as your wife, to be with her in sickness and in health and to love her forever? It seemed that the black-haired man's world had turned upside down, but he still found the strength to give an answer. Yes, and his voice did not waver. Do you agree, Uzumaki Naruko, to become the wife of this man, to be with him in sickness and in health and to love him forever? 1,000 thoughts flashed through her head, but the last one was the most important. Come on, little one, I don't mind, or are you afraid? Yes, her voice was calm. By the authority given to me by God, I declare you husband and wife. The groom can kiss the bride. The brunette and blonde brought their faces closer to each other, and their lips soon met in a timid kiss. Various cries were heard, but they didn't care, because they had finally opened the veil of their feelings. Several days have passed since the wedding. The newlyweds lived in a separate house on the edge of the block. Now they could definitely say that they love each other. This is what the couple recently admitted. Each of them was happy, because knowing that your soulmate will not reject you is the highest reward. So the days and weeks passed slowly. Sasuke entered the academy, and the Uchihas trained until they lost their pulse. Itachi sometimes chuckled about the fact that she was the first blonde Uchiha in their clan, for which he usually ragged. Naruko, although she was calm, could also stand up for herself and very well. They spent all their time together, laughing and enjoying every passing second. As they say, life gets better. It's been a whole year since Naruko and Itachi's wedding. Our heroine is already 8 years old. Their life together was filled with many happy events. Sasuke admired the blonde because she was his age, and in strength she was not inferior to Itachi, if not superior to him. Itachi himself rose to the rank of ANBU captain. The former Uzumaki was also offered to join the elite shinobi squad, but she refused. But this does not mean that she does not carry out missions like a regular shinobi, and very often missions, are S rank. In the world of shinobi, and especially among the Nukenin, rumors began to appear about a strange shinobi. Even among the villagers, a strange feeling began to arise towards the young kunoichi. But one day, returning from a mission, Itachi was all tortured and pale. The girl immediately became worried about her husband, because it would take a lot of effort to bring the genius of the Uchiha clan to such a state. But when she heard the story of her loved one, the color drained from her face. And the conversation went like this. Naruko, the black-haired man, began unusually quietly. I was given the task of slaughtering the entire clan, except you and Sasuke. It turns out they are planning a coup. And he fell silent. And his wife didn't know what to say. It was, too, unexpected. But she, realizing that her husband needed support, said, Itachi, no matter what you decide, I will always be with you. I will understand everything and let it go. But you must make your choice yourself. I love you, Naru. You know what I chose. A sad smile touched both their lips. They decided to enjoy their mate's embrace longer, because it would soon end. So they fell asleep, enjoying the last moments of this warmth. The next morning, the blonde said goodbye to Itachi. Bitter tears froze in her eyes, but she could not show her weakness in front of her husband and therefore endured it. She's a shinobi, Today the girl took Sasuke early and left him to spend the night at home. Before going to bed, ask him to stay late. Sasuke, we have a serious conversation ahead of us. Try to understand and not interrupt me, the bearer of kurama began. The boy frowned. He felt that something bad was going to happen and knew in advance that this conversation would not end well. He nodded at his brother's wife's question and prepared to listen. Yesterday, Naru conveyed all the events of yesterday. Here. Sasuke simply stared at one point in shock. At first he didn't believe her, he thought that they had decided to play a prank on him, but looking at her tear-stained face, he realized that everything was true. His first impulse was to rush into the neighborhood and check all of the above. he was stopped by a strange impulse from his interlocutor. She sat down on her knees in front of him and hugged him tightly. Only when hot tears began to fall on his shoulders did he realize how much more painful Itachi and Naruko were. The next day, everyone learned that the Uchiha quarter had been slaughtered. Only Sasuke and Naruko survived. In addition, today the blue-eyed girl in her shorts and t-shirt showed up to the small Uchiha and told him that she was now his guardian. And so their new life began. It's been 5 years since the Uchiha clan was slaughtered. Naruko was able to replace Sasuke with his family. She trained him, which is why he now knew many techniques and was very good at using the eternal Mangyoke Sharingan. The eyes are a separate and very sad story. Sasuke then nevertheless went to his quarter and awakened Mangyoke. The blonde then scolded him for a long time. But 2 years later, the raven brought disappointing news. He placed a small jar with Itachi's eyes on the windowsill. The little Uchiha wondered for a long time what this meant. Only after the operation, the girl told her husband's brother that if he received this Sharingan, it means that his brother is dead. For a long time, the newly made widow walked around as if she had been drowned in water. Only Kurama was able to bring her out of depression with the words, "Well, you've fallen apart like a rag. Get it together, Uzumaki, and not some winner. This is what it means to be an Uzumaki." Then the girl immediately cheered up and tried to forget about this event. But let's get back to pressing matters. Of course, he is very far from Naruko, because now she is approximately equal in strength to Kage. Today, Sasuke is assigned to teams, and as always, he smiled at his little sister and left. He called her that, and she didn't mind it. Arriving at class, he sat down on his favorite desk and returned the "Allah, I'm a brick" expression to his face. Still, he wanted to become a true Uchiha. Crowds of girls were hanging around him as always. Of course, he is the last of the great Uchiha clan, a handsome black-haired man with onyx eyes and marble skin, and an excellent student to boot. He's all like an ice prince. His most ardent fans were 2 girls, pink-haired Haruno Sakura and blonde Yamanako Ino. There was no escape from them. "Well, here we go again. Sasuke-kun, can I sit next to you?" asked the pink-haired one. He said nothing. But she didn't need his consent. She had already settled comfortably at his desk. Thank God Iruka-sensei came and silenced everyone. He began reading out the command lists. Team number 1. The whole class hid, waiting to hear their names. Team number 7, Sasuke Uchiha, Haruno Sakura. A loud scream shook the audience. Can I continue?" The green-eyed one nodded. "So, Mentor Kakashi Hatake, the 3rd member of the team, will come along with the sensei, team number 8, Abura." Sasuke didn't listen any further. He was infuriated by the thought that his partner was Sakura, and the second one was completely unknown. Oh, God, what kind of madhouse have I gotten myself into? Such thoughts were spinning in the head of the poor Uchiha. When Iruka-sensei finished his speech, the mentors began to enter the office and pick up their teams. Soon only the 7th team remained in the audience. "Where do they wear it?" Sakura rushed around the office. The guy was already pretty tired of this, but he sat calmly and was silent. And then, finally, the door opened, and a shinobi in Jonin uniform walked into the room, with a half-face mask, a protector covering his left eye. And his silver hair was in the "I was struck by lightning" style. After examining the office, the Jonin invited everyone to go up to the roof for further acquaintance. "So, tell us about yourself. What do you like or dislike? What is your dream or goal?" "Sensei, set an example for us," Sakura began to suck up. "My name is Hatake Kakashi. What I like or don't like doesn't concern you, there is no goal, you don't need to know your dream. Next." The girl pouted offendedly, but introduced herself. "My name is Haruno Sakura. I love, my dream. I have a goal," and each of her phrases was accompanied by shooting loving eyes at the Uchiha. "What don't you like?" The teacher interrupted the romantic speech. "Ino!" The kunoichi shouted with all her fury. "Clear. Your turn," Hataki nodded at Sasuke. "My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I am a genin of the hidden leaf. There are few things I like, and many things I don't like. There is no goal. I won't tell you my dream." Sakura looked strangely at the black-eyed man and was again surprised by his beauty. Kakashi was about to get a word in when suddenly a stunning blonde jumped onto the roof. Sakura's first thought when she saw her was, if she claims Sasuke-kun, then I will immediately lose. But Haruno was more interested in something else. Why do Kakashi-sensei and Sasuke-kun look at this Mimura with such admiration? This is how all shinobi look at her, starting from the rank of Chunin and ending with Kage? But let's talk about this in more detail. Appeared before them, a tall, stately girl of about 14 years old with long golden hair, styled in a high and unusual hairstyle, pretty faces, beautiful blue eyes that eclipsed the sky itself, but the most notable were 3 stripes on each cheek, and on her face appeared sweet, even kind of condescending smile. She was wearing a black short combat kimono with symbols of the Uzumaki and Uchiha clans, which well emphasized her wasp waist and size 3 breasts. Slender legs peeked out from underneath, wearing black shinobi-heeled sandals, crow feathers were woven into her hair, a gift from Itachi. "I think you already realized that it was Naru. My name is Uchiha Naruko," Minato's daughter began. "I love one person." At these words, the pink-haired girl shuddered, and Kakashi and Sasuke, who understood who she was talking about, began to smile sadly. Meanwhile, the unusual person continued. "I hate wars, betrayal and hatred of this world. The goal is to raise Sasuke to be a normal person." The green-eyed one did not understand anything from these words, and the demon-bearer looked slyly at the Uchiha and added, "But so far, it's not working out very well." Sakura froze in confusion. The one-eyed one tried to restrain the laughter bursting out, and the Sharinganist blushed and, with all his embarrassment and indignation, shouted, "Sister!" The girl winked at her brother and sat down next to everyone. "So, I decided to take on the role of the main Hataki. Since we have Naruko on our team, I will not conduct teamwork training. So tomorrow you have your first mission." "But Kakashi-sensei!" shouted the indignant Haruno. "Why, because of this problem, we will not conduct training." The gray-haired man's gaze became very heavy at these words, and Sasuke became more gloomy than usual and fixed a hateful gaze on Sakura. The culprit of this quarrel herself calmly endured the insult. "Sakura," the Uchiha heir said in such a voice, with undisguised threat that the latter got goosebumps. "One more unnecessary word from you towards Naruko, and you will regret it very much." The 4th disciple only nodded in agreement and disappeared. Naru and Sasuke jumped off the roof, leaving Haruno to think. Walking through the village, 2 Uchihas caught hateful and hostile glances from the villagers, who, looks, were directed at the girl from this small company. With shinobi, it was quite the opposite. Very often they approached the blondie, greeted him, bowed and many other things, but one thing was constant. Men of different ages cast adoring and respectful glances at her. Of course, despite everything, she remained faithful to Itachi. Even after his death. The women cast admiring glances at the blue-eyed girl, mixed with respect. When they began to approach the house, Sasuke could not resist and asked a question. "Sister, why didn't you tell me that you would be on the same team with me?" The girl thought for a moment, and then, smiling sweetly, answered. "I wanted to make a surprise." "Didn't you like it?" She said the last sentence sadly. "I liked it," the black-haired man hastened to assure her. "But you still could have told me." To this the lady just shook her head and went into the house. Sasuke had no choice but to do anything, so he followed her. The next day everyone arrived on time, even Kakashi-sensei. Going on a mission to the Hokage, everyone was thinking about something different. Sasuke's thoughts, when I asked about the mission in the morning, One-chan only smiled slyly. "Crap. They will probably put some kind of pig on us. Sakura's thoughts, oh, how handsome Sasuke-kun is today. Now we will receive our first mission, and I will prove to dear Sasuke-kun that I am much better than this little girl. Naruko's thoughts, it's a pity that you don't see what kind of shinobi your brother, Itachi, is becoming. You'd be proud of him. Kakashi's thoughts, I'm so glad that I am the mentor of Naruko's team. There is a person here who understands me. And all according to the same scenario. Finally, Team 7 approached the residence. It was a huge red building with the Fire Nation symbol on it. Having gone inside, the four went to the second floor and stopped at the oak door. A steady knock on the door, for the sake of decency, and a quiet answer from the other side. Come in. They entered a spacious office and bowed before the Hokage, who was sitting at a long table. Next to him were some teachers, including Iruka-sensei. Team number 7 is ready to complete missions. The blonde said in a melodious, slightly mocking voice. The Hokage raised his head and looked at the newly minted genin. His gaze lingered on Naru's face for a second longer, but then, receiving a sly smile in response, they continued to examine the room. So, your first mission is to weed the farmers' beds on the outskirts of Konoha. Is the task clear? The third asked sarcastically. Fulfill. The stunned genin left the room and headed in the opposite direction from the residence. Sasuke finally realized what his sister's smile meant. Well, how else? All genin first perform daring tasks, and gradually increase in rank. After the mission, the Uchiha came home incredibly tired, because he spent the whole day chasing stray dogs, weeding beds, etc. In short, he did all the dirty work. The blue-eyed girl followed him. It seemed that she could at least give a bad. Of course, she enjoyed these missions and perceived them as relaxation. Going to bed, everyone processed the information that had fallen on their heads that day. Sasuke dreamed that this would end as soon as possible, and Naruko was having a mental conversation with Kurama. Well? Have you rested? Asked the huge fox. He sat in a flower meadow and looked at the girl standing in front of him. He hasn't had a cage for a long time. Yeah. A joyful exclamation was heard. And the teenager fell to the ground with laughter. How are the others? Kurama asked slyly. Well. Kakashi seems fine, but Sasuke and Sakura are clearly upset. Yes? The Ninetales asked, clearly enjoying the said phrase. In response, he only saw a nod of the head and a yawn. After this small action, Kyubi burst out laughing. The girl just snorted and turned away, but then, smiling sweetly, said, See you tomorrow, Ku. And, evaporated. The last few weeks have passed at this pace. True, if Kakashi-sensei and Naruko received only positive emotions from this, and Sasuke steadfastly endured, then Sakura was already on the verge. She can't show this upstart her place. But, if earlier she could tell the blonde everything she thought about her, now she only enjoyed the mental support of these hateful gazes, but she was not at all interested in the admiring glances of the rest of the population. Flashback. Team No. 7, as always, returned after a mission. However, this time they decided to go out to eat together. Entering the restaurant, the multi-haired team encountered Team Number 10, led by Asuma Sarutobi. When they sat down at the table, Shikamaru's first thought was, so, my father told me about her. We will have to fulfill his request. But before young Nara had time to open his mouth, he was interrupted by Haruno, who screamed at the entire establishment. For her, a clownless girl, the admiring glances of Asuma and Shikamaru, interested from Choji and jealous from Ino, became the last straw, and she decided to teach the young Uchiha a lesson. Why do you look at this upstart like that? She's an untrained orphan. She wasn't at the academy, which means she couldn't even enroll, but the Hokage added her to our team out of pity. Yes, even Kakashi-sensei, because of this incompetence, did not conduct team training. And all she does is show off. Her chakras are probably minuscule. And turning to face the pale Uchiha, she continued. You are a useless orphan. Do you even know your parents? Do you know what I think? That your father was an alcoholic and your mother was a drug addict and a whore. They left you and disappeared somewhere in an alley. There wasn't even anyone to teach you. Do you know who you look like? For a corrupt girl. And about your phrase when we met, remember, Sasuke-kun is only mine. It's time for a demon like you to die long ago. Do you know my opinion about myself? You are stupid, untalented, uneducated, lonely Mimra. Here. The pink-haired girl sat down and looked at those around her, looking for support. But I only came across individuals who did not understand or were distorted by anger. Although no, there was one calm face and it belonged, oddly enough, to the culprit of this scandal. Just as Sasuke was about to open his mouth to utter a threat that would soon be carried out, the blue-eyed girl interrupted him. Sakura, she asked, calmly. Do you want me to answer all your questions? Just not here. And let's take team number 10 with us. In our company, only 3 people know nothing about me, another one is informed only about my combat past, an eloquent look at Shikamaru. And the other does not know about all my knowledge, about himself. As soon as the girl finished speaking, they were all transported to a huge mansion with the coats of arms of the Uchiha and Uzumaki clans, but not everyone knew about it. The green-eyed girl immediately started chattering. Sasuke-kun, do you live here? The black-eyed man decided to remain silent because otherwise he would have hit this Velcro. The others, besides Kakashi and Asuma, who had already been here, looked at the structure with admiration. Naruko led everyone into the living room and sat them down on the sofa, while she sat down in an armchair. So, the girl decided to start. I guess I'll start from the very beginning. Questions can be asked after my story. You can interrupt me only by catching me in a lie. My full name is Uzumaki Namikaze Uchiha Naruko. What right do you have to bear the name Namikaze? The pink-haired girl immediately cried out. Calm down, Sakura, Kakashi answered this time. She bears all these names by right, and now you'll find out why. Continue. A grateful nod from the hostess. My father was the 4th Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato, nicknamed Yellow Lightning of Konoha, the head of the Namikaze clan Namikaze Minato, and my mother was the 2nd Jinchuriki of Kyubi, Bloody Habanero, the previous Haim of the Uzumaki clan Uzumaki Kushina. This time no one interrupted her, knowing that she would be able to ask all her questions at the end. This is all? Haim asked, deliberately keeping silent about her power level. There were only head nods in response. Everyone had their head in the clouds. Clouds, Kakashi, Naruko, you are as always. I took after Minato-sensei in character. You will remain silent, listen to the end and then calmly put him in his place. The guys haven't seen your sweet, killer smile yet. But your stubbornness comes from Kushina-sama. Yees. Clouds, Sasuke, well done, Naruko. You know how to put it in place. And any Uchiha would envy your calmness in such a situation. It's not for nothing that you bear our last name. It's a pity, because of Sakura, I won't be able to beg for a new technique. Clouds, Sakura, so this upstart is the daughter of such great people? Now it's clear why she joined our team so easily. She probably has no abilities, but only the influence of her parents. Bad, now I won't be able to say anything out loud. But it's okay, I'll tell her everything in my thoughts. Clouds, Asuma, does Naruko know who her parents are? I did not think that her knowledge was as great as her strength. Intelligence and abilities come from the father, and beauty from the mother. Although, she is also a master of seals, as I was told on the last mission. Lucky you, Kakashi. Clouds, Shikamaru, you are truly smart and beautiful, just as your father said. It was necessary to answer questions about parents in such a way as to confuse the others and at the same time not even mention the level of power and everything else related to the world of shinobi. So fool everyone. Naruko, you are a genius. Cloud's Choji, I wonder what you eat to be so slim. Or is it your family? Or, for example, my bone is thick, but yours is thin? Still, you are beautiful. Cloud's Ino, how beautiful she is. And even the daughter of the fourth himself. As they say, you can't drink beauty away. Maybe take some advice from her about hair? She makes them so silky. It's clear why Sasuke-kun likes her. Cloud's Naruko, I don't like this topic. I hope they didn't understand that I just want to forget this as quickly as possible, like a bad dream. I wouldn't want to make a mistake and end up burning like that. Okay, let's hope that I manage to get them through. Since the day was very difficult, everyone decided to go home. But before leaving, Shikamaru turned to the demon bearer. If I see you, my father asked me to invite you to dinner. Will you come? I can't refuse Shikaku-san. How problematic all this is. This conversation ended with friendly laughter from the guys, and in the evening the blondes sat at the table in the Nara house and had conversations with the head of the clan and his wife. Shikamaru, who was also present there, was on the list of those who were charmed by this girl. And this list was, oh, how big it was, and went far beyond the borders of the Land of Fire. And, flashback. Team number 7, after another mission, went to the Hokage's residence. Sleeping comfortably in Naruko's arms was the cat Tora, their mission. The animal itself approached the blue-eyed girl and jumped into her arms, while Uchiha and Haruno rushed all over Konoha in search of this cat. Hearing the usual, "Come in," and, having given the cat to the owner, the genin prepared to listen to information about the new mission. So, tasks for team number 7, weed the beds, sit with the children of the elders, catch a runaway cat or... Naruko, sensing that Sakura was about to have a nervous breakdown, suddenly politely interrupted the Hokage. Hokage-sama, consider my opinion. I believe Team 7 is ready to take on higher-level missions. When the former Uzumaki said these words, the admiring glances of everyone in the office, except Sakura, were directed at her. And then Hiruzen realized that he simply could not refuse her. Fine. I'll give you a C-rank mission, okay? The only response was silent nods. Mr. Tazuna, you can come in. A man, about 50 years old, came into the room. He was holding a bottle of half-drunk sake in his hands, and he smelled of fumes a kilometer away. And these kids will accompany me? Are they even ninjas? Especially this blonde one. She will look better in bed even without outerwear. After these words, a dead silence reigned in the room, which no one dared to break. And as a result, the Uchiha could not restrain himself. You shouldn't insult someone who can easily break your neck at night. At these words, the old man swallowed nervously. His inner self told him that the boy was not lying. Well, Kakashi decided to interrupt the silence. Meet us in 2 hours at the main gate. And don't be late. Having said this, he disappeared. The team just took a deep breath and wandered off to get ready for the mission, and Tazuna took another sip of the bottle. When he was about to leave, the Hokage suddenly called out to him. Be careful with your expressions during the mission, otherwise you might actually not be able to restrain yourself. The bridge builder snorted and, raising his head proudly, walked out the door. At the appointed time, the black-haired young man stood and waited for his teammates. Suddenly a cry was heard, and there's no other way to say it. Sasuke-kun. Turning his head, he saw what he was so afraid of, namely, the pink-haired member of team number 7, Sakura. Taking a deep breath and wishing myself patience. As always, he said coldly. Hello, Sakura. Hello, Sasuke, Sakura. The blonde who had just approached greeted them. All three began to wait for the sensei and the customer. For now, I will describe how they were dressed. Sakura was wearing her favorite red dress with the sign of the Haruno clan and knee-length shorts, and regular shinobi sandals on her feet. Sasuke put on white shorts, a blue t-shirt with a stand-up collar, and also wore regular shinobi sandals on his feet. Naruko decided to go on the mission wearing a knee-length red combat kimono with the insignia of the Uchiha and Uzumaki clans, flat boots on her feet, and her hair braided in a long braid. While I was describing the clothes of our heroes, latecomers came up. On our way, the gray-haired man said calmly. "Hi," was heard in response, and team number 7 went outside the village. POV Kakashi. Oh, it's been a long time since I went on missions like this. True, the customer annoys me a little. I have a feeling that he is hiding something. Okay, we need to forget about this. Look, Naruko is relaxed and doesn't seem to be thinking about anything. I would like that. Eh? Sakura, did you ask something? I think it's something about the village of waves. Exactly. She asked if there were any shinobi there. Well, we have to answer. You see, the country of waves is very small and there are no shinobi in it. There are 5 great countries. And in every country there is a shinobi village. In the country of fire, Konoha, in the country of wind, Suna, in the country of water. And POV Kakashi. While Kakashi was gushing in front of the green-eyed girl, Naruko was thinking about the task. For some reason it seemed to her that not everything was clean here. And the architect behaved strangely. But she was distracted from her thoughts by a strange surge of chakra. She raised her head towards the road and saw a puddle. Nothing seems to be normal, really, in hot weather, and even when there has been no rain for 3 weeks, it looks strange. The girl immediately understood what was going on and, smiling slyly, decided to watch the show. They passed the puddle and took a few steps away when 2 shinobi in the form of Chunin of the Mist jumped out of the water. "What are you going to do, little one?" A familiar voice rang out. "I'll be waiting for the show, Databeo." It is precisely at such moments that the rebellious nature of the mother manifests itself. "And you won't even help?" the fox asked, feigning surprise. "Kurama, stop Tibeo." Fine, fine. Look. It's starting." Indeed, Sasuke has activated his Sharingan and is already fighting. Haruno stands in defense of the bridge builder, and only Naru stands rooted to the spot. Kakashi is hiding in a tree. Everything seems to be leaning towards a couple of Nikonins. But, suddenly the Kiri shinobi seemed to be struck by a current, and they fell unconscious. Pink Hair and Tazuna froze, not understanding anything. The sound of applause was heard, and a gray-haired man jumped from the tree. "You did a good job. Especially Naruko and Sasuke. And by the way, Mr. Tazuna, is there anything you want to tell us?" The old man was clearly nervous. Beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. "You see," he mumbled, "the country of waves is very poor, and we would not be able to pay for such a high mission. In fact, the shipowner Gato is hunting me. He is involved in smuggling and selling drugs. And I am a bridge builder who must build a bridge and save our country. You know that we have every right to abandon the mission and return to Konoha?" Kakashi confirmed. "Kakashi-senpai, I think we better continue the mission, otherwise we will disgrace our village. Every shinobi may encounter an unexpected situation, wouldn't you know?" The copy ninja was immediately imbued with her words. Next, the girl addressed directly to the architect. "We will complete this mission and save the country of waves. Trust us." Her speech was now accompanied by a sweet smile. "I agree with my sister," Sasuke answered calmly. "If Sasuke-kun wants to continue the mission, then I agree," Haruno chirped barely audibly, although in fact she thought differently. "Finally, I can prove to everyone how much better I am than this upstart." "Okay," the sensei of the problem team exhaled. And they continued on their way. Several hours had already passed, and the guys, and others, went out to the lake, where the boatman was already waiting for them. They swam very quietly, without creating unnecessary noise and listening to every rustle. When the unusual 4 crossed the lake, a strange sound was heard in the bushes. "Here is my chance," flashed through Sakura's head, and without hesitation, she threw the kunai towards the source of the noise. A small white rabbit immediately ran out of the bushes. The pink-haired one turned red, a la poppy flower. Sorry. I don't understand how this happened, the green-eyed girl tried to justify herself, stuttering. But at that moment, Kakashi and Naruko suddenly shouted in two voices, "Bend down." Everyone fell to the ground, and a huge cleaver crashed into the tree behind them. The former Uzumaki's eyes widened as she recognized the sword. It was the famous Decapitator, one of the swords of the famous Seven Swordsmen of the Mist, which means the owner must be nearby. And then, as if reading the thoughts of Minato's daughter, a shinobi jumped onto the sword. He was wearing baggy gray pants tucked into military-colored boots. There were also bracers of the same color on his hands, half of his face was hidden by a mask, and his disheveled black hair was covered by the crossed-out protector of a Kirigakure shinobi. Naturally it was Momochi Zabuza, the Konoha Jonin whispered with his lips. "Who do I see?" The master of silent killing grinned. "Do I really have the famous copy ninja, the Sharingan Kakashi Hatake, and—" Here he looked at the blonde and swallowed nervously, his eyes became like the Otama Rasengan, and his thoughts flashed, "I end. Haku, get out of here. The retribution for my sins has come. Although the best death will indeed be at the hands of the fox." All pomposity and arrogance disappeared from the eyes, and in their place appeared admiration mixed with confusion. "Kami-sama," whispered the Nuke-nin, "this is Naruko Uchiha." His words were laced with respect and admiration for the blonde. Haruno and Tazuna were confused. Just now, this man was mocking their sensei, an experienced jounin. And suddenly he was afraid of the little girl who had just become a genin. Although the thoughts of this couple were different, they still converged on one question: why? And if the architect remembered where he heard this name, then Sakura was angry, terribly angry. Why? Why again? Both Kakashi-sensei, Asuma-sensei, and now also the Nuke-nin treat her with respect. Who is she? Just think, the daughter of the fourth. The influence of parents here does not make any sense. An ordinary clanless girl cannot understand all the difference. And yet, why? The pinkette couldn't understand. Why? She suddenly dared to ask, "Why do you all admire her so much?" Gray-haired and Sasuke made a facepalm, found the time to ask. But in contrast to them, the bridge builder supported the girl, because he was sure that there was something familiar in her name. Everything is very simple. You can't help but admire such a woman. Momochi replied, not taking his eyes off Naru. You better leave, the culprit of this confusion herself said quietly. Zabuza turned his gaze to her and looked somewhat guilty. I can't. I have assignments. I have to kill the architect, and you better not get in my way. I see, then forgive me too, she said and raised her confident gaze. There was regret in it. Kakashi-senpai. Protect Sasuke and Sakura, Databeo. She shouted and instantly appeared in front of Zabuza. The girl lunged with a katana that appeared from the seal, but the enemy skillfully parried the blow. Naruko had no intention of stopping there. She jumped away and made seals with lightning speed. Element of wind, great gust. A huge blade from the wind rushed towards the shinobi, but he dodged at the last moment, although he was wounded. Then the opponents used their swords. Their level of kenjutsu was approximately the same, but the girl was able to inflict a couple of scratches and one rather serious wound, since she, Naruko, not the wound, was more flexible and dexterous. Nuke-nin did not like this state of affairs, and he broke the distance. There was a feeling that the blonde was just waiting for this. Lightning release, thunder charge. 5 balls made of pure lightning rushed straight towards Zabuza. He dodged one by jumping, he blocked the second and third with his sword, the fourth missed over himself. The criminal wanted to jump away from the fifth one, but the ball was faster and seriously injured his leg. But it was not this that irritated him, but the fact that he was losing too quickly. The swordsman, of course, understood that he had no chance against this girl, But this was not a reason to be blown away so quickly. Therefore, after catching his breath a little, Momochi also decided to launch a counterattack with techniques. Water release, water dragon. Wind element, hurricane. The Uchiha just sighed sadly. She calculated his moves in advance and released a special technique. The dragon, obeying the will of its owner, flew towards the young girl, but ran into an invisible wall. Suddenly, water began to soak into the transparent barrier. Only then could everyone see the hurricane, consisting of wind and water. At Naruko's request, a huge pillar rushed towards Momochi and carried him to the other side. Flight of the Thunder God rang out in the silence. Naruko looked at the Nuke sprawled across from her with sad eyes. It was hard for her to realize that she would have to kill a man who was simply confused in himself. The girl hoped for a miracle that was about to happen. But it didn't happen. She saw his mental suffering, because she learned to read people, to look into their souls. Not knowing why, the young Uchiha looked back. Kakashi destroyed the last Zabuza clone, and Sasuke and Sakura were finally able to calm down. The Jinchuriki understood the need to complete the mission and move on, but this understanding made her chest feel like an iron vice. Goodbye, the girl whispered. And only she had decided everything for herself, even raised her katana for the final blow, when suddenly 3 Senbon pierced the swordsman's neck. Naru calmly walked up and, trying to stop the trembling in her hands, tried to feel her pulse. But he wasn't there. She turned her head towards the tree on which a young man, a little older than her, was sitting. He was wearing the mask of the Oinen Mist. "Are you picking it up?" asked the fox. The only response was a nod. "Well, then good luck to you," the blonde said cheerfully and smiled. He looked at the girl in surprise. "So that means you," the guy even ran out of air. He couldn't understand why she was letting them go. "Go, I don't want to kill you. Leave quickly, the others will be here soon." These words were followed by a condescending smile. The boy looked at the fox gratefully and, taking his sensei, disappeared. "Naruko." The voice of the sensei of team number 7 rang out. "How are you?" "It's okay, senpai." "This is good." The one-eyed man did not have time to finish, because he fell from exhaustion. "Well, here we go again." A sigh from the blue-eyed girl. "How many times have I told him not to use the Sharingan for so long?" "Okay." She looked around the company. "I'll carry him." Tazuna almost laughed at these words. How a little girl will carry a carcass twice her size. But what he saw made him choke. Naru, without straining, put Kakashi on her shoulder and walked forward, as if not feeling the burden. Having recovered from the first shock, the architect noticed that the guys had almost left and hurried to catch up with them. The gray-haired man opened his eyes in a small room and looked around. Next to his futon was a nightstand, a wardrobe and a chair. The man took a deep breath and tried to remember the events of the past day. In general, he was not surprised that he woke up in an unknown place. Perhaps before, this would have been strange, but not since Naruko Uchiha became his partner. For example, he remembered one incident for the rest of his life. Flashback. You will have a task near the country of rivers. The goal is to neutralize a particularly dangerous nuke. Details on the task are in the folder. Uchiha Naruko is appointed captain. Fulfill. Dictated the Hokage. Hi. 2 voices rang out, and the shinobi disappeared from the office. Are you ready? The gray-haired man asked his partner. You're offending me, senpai, the blonde responded in response. Let's move out. And the 2 disappeared behind the gate. A day later, on the border of the country wreck. The task wasn't very difficult, so let's rest? Suggested the copy man. I totally agree with you. They went down to a small clearing and began to prepare for bed. They decided not to carry out the watch because Kawa no Kuni is a friendly country and you can be calm on their territory. Although the partners were tormented by some strange feeling, they decided to attribute it to lack of sleep and, sitting comfortably, fell asleep. But awakening was clearly not a pleasant one. The one-eyed man opened his eyes, or rather his eyes first. Having stood up and looked around, he understood nothing. And when I understood, I ate. No, is this normal? Fall asleep in a comfortable clearing, and wake up in a dirty and damp cell. And the most interesting thing is that the prison, what else could it be, had the signs of Tanagakure. They call them friendly countries, Kakashi flashed in his head. Well, how are things? Was heard from behind. Looking around, he saw the Uchiha sitting on the floor in the lotus position and looking around the room. Have you been awake for a long time? The ANBU decided to start a conversation. 2 hours ago, she shrugged. Do you want to tell me the most wonderful news? And without waiting for an answer, she said, we will be executed soon. Hatake was stunned. He even came over and checked the blondie's temperature to see if she was delirious. The son of White Fang didn't like the situation they were in at all. What did they say? Yes, nod, for violating the laws of their country. But we didn't do anything like that. They didn't, the girl calmly confirmed, but they don't think so. Super. Just great. The shinobi slid down the wall to the floor. What should we do now? Kakashi, don't act like a wuss, harshly, you and I will have an audience with the daimyo. There we'll tell him everything, and she smiled with a smile that gave even a seasoned warrior goosebumps. Now get ready, they're coming. The girl walked up to the bars and raised her head proudly. The fourth student understood her plan to play shinobi, insulted to the point of horror. He repeated the action of his partner. A few minutes later the guards, consisting of Tujan and Tanya, arrived. They were 5 times weaker than the couple from Konoha. Soon, the 4 came to a huge palace. His whole appearance indicated that a noble person lived here. The high walls, decorated with marble, shimmered in the sun, and the patterns created such images that it seemed as if they were alive. But our heroes had no time for that. They entered a spacious hall and stopped at the largest door, where 5 jounin stood. One of those who accompanied the Uchiha and Hatake came to the door and, having knocked, he said, Mr. Daimyo, we have brought prisoners to you. He reported. The girl's eye twitched slightly at this statement, but she quickly returned her proud look to her face. Come in, was heard from the other side. The doors opened and the whole company, yep, so funny, went inside. At the very end of the audience hall, a fat man wearing a traditional green kimono with the symbols of the land of rivers sat on a throne. His look was so proud and self-confident that any Uchiha would be jealous. The hall itself was large, advisors sat at the table and looked at the couple with displeasure. The doors behind them slammed shut with a characteristic roar. Speak, the ruler waved his hand. The blonde was the first to speak. Mr. Daimyo, we would really like to know what offense we were captured for and want to execute us. And further. But they didn't let her finish. One of the advisors suddenly shouted. Your parents didn't teach you manners, girl? First, introduce yourself and say who you are. The girl could barely restrain herself from destroying everything around her. My name is Uchiha Naruko, and my partner is Hatake Kakashi. We are shinobi of Konohagakure no Sato. And, if you don't mind, I'll still agree. Why does the country of rivers violate the peace treaty with the country of fire? We are not violating anything, this time the daimyo himself answered. He condescended to ordinary mortals. You violated our rules, and that's why we captured you. And what law did we break? This time the gray-haired man asked. You killed our shinobi, and this is unforgivable. Say thank you for agreeing to listen to you. The advisors intervened again. The Jinchuriki was already at the limit, and then there was this. After all, she is half Uzumaki, and she also needs to take out her rebellious nature somewhere. Stop interfering, Databeo. Our conversation has nothing to do with you, let us talk calmly. And we didn't kill anyone, Tabeo. Kakashi, meanwhile, had long ago become pale as death, because he guessed how their conversation would most likely end. How dare you? They decided to listen to you, but you behave like this. Now we can simply order you to be killed. Yes, we. But they shut up mid-sentence because of the terrifying aura that forced them to bend over and submit. It constrained movements and instilled animal terror in the heart, and the instinct of self-preservation screamed that it was time to get away. Do you even understand who you are threatening? Asked the heiress of the red-haired demons. Does everyone understand who I mean? This time no one dared to utter a word. Just now, you threatened the famous copy ninja, the son of the white fang of Konoha, Kakashi's Sharingan. The eyes of everyone, well, except Kakashi, present widened. They realized what they had done. And then it dawned on them. If this man is Kakashi's Sharingan, then who is this girl? One of the advisors nevertheless decided to ask. How should we contact you? The girl grinned, and because of this small action, the advisors and daimyo turned white as a sheet. You can address me as Naruko Haim. The sound of a falling body was heard. Of course, after all, the kidnapping, I'm already silent about the execution of the Haim of any clan can lead to serious consequences, and if the princess is the heiress of one of the great clans, then even to war. But something told those present that these were not all the surprises for today. I am the Haim of 3 clans, Namikaze, Uzumaki, and Uchiha. This time there were many more falling bodies. The ruler of this country really wanted to fall through the ground, but, unfortunately, he could not do this. An instant and the pressing key disappeared. Everyone finally got the opportunity to breathe deeply. I would really like to let you go, but I can't. Poor daimyo, almost had a heart attack. You killed my... We didn't kill anyone, the one-eyed man answered, deciding once again not to touch the fox. Here we only destroyed the nuke. We have permission to destroy it. And the gray-haired man handed the scroll to the advisors. Indeed, one of them began. Apparently an error occurred. Please forgive us. Error? The daughter of the 4th sang in an unctuous voice, it's a mistake, then? Please forgive me that we won't stay for tea. It's time for us. The gray-haired man grabbed Naruko and moved with the help of Shunshin. Everyone was finally able to calm down, take a breath, and with a clear conscience, faint. And, flashback. The poor ninja still remembers how the Hokage laughed when he heard the report. True, he was not happy for long, because he got hit on the head by Haim. Lost in memories, the man did not even notice how the door opened. Kakashi-sensei, how are you? Asked Sakura. I'll live, the gray-haired man croaked, smiling lightly. Senpai, you are as usual, they said in a melodious voice from the other side. Hataki immediately recognized its owner. The girl was very worried about her senpai. After all, he became almost like a family member to her. When the guys reached the customer's house, she herself went and picked herbs for a decoction. And now, when her father's student woke up, the blondie was truly happy. You know, Naruko, the victim spoke, I remembered the task in the country of rivers. Sakura and Sasuke, who had just come in, noticed how their teammates' cheeks turned red, and meanwhile the sensei continued, and I realized that I would never make anyone angry again. You. Why, sensei? Asked the pink-haired one. Well, she couldn't calm down, she couldn't, that's all. I still want to live, the mentor answered on the verge of hearing, and then added louder, get ready. We have training today, because as I understand it, Zabuza is alive? The blue-eyed girl only nodded dejectedly. Can you at least get up? Sasuke asked sarcastically. He immediately assessed the level of damage to the sensei. He'll just go with crutches. I'm right? Itachi's wife said doomedly. Of course, he shook his head forward, now go. The black-haired man and Haruno had already left, but Namikaze's daughter lingered. Don't mention that mission to me again, senpai, ki released, to which the lying man swallowed convulsively, well, I'm off. And with her head raised, she walked out the door. Poor me. Apparently Naruchan had not had a release for a long time, and here I conveniently set myself up. I'll have to take care of myself this week, maybe I'll survive. Yes, this is probably my only chance to return to Konoha unharmed. And nodding to himself for the full picture, the owner of the Sharingan began to get ready. The week promised to be long. After everyone had gathered, Team 7 headed out to their first team practice. For this task, they chose a small clearing in the forest. Having settled comfortably on the ground, Kakashi decided to find out where to start training. So, Sakura, Sasuke, list me all your abilities so that I can choose the right training. The hand of the pink-haired bitch shot up into the sky. The green-eyed girl quickly wanted to prove to her rival, and this is exactly what Haruno considered Naruko to be, that only she was worthy of being next to Sasuke-kun. After waiting for the sensei to nod, she began. I have a good grasp of the theory and can perform any techniques that we studied at the academy. Naruko didn't react at all. She seemed to be lost in her thoughts and had no intention of getting out of them. Sasuke snorted at such a weak supply of techniques, and the one-eyed man thought doomedly, everything is even worse than I expected. Maybe ask Naruto to tell everyone about Itachi. No, I think it's too early. If she wants, she'll say everything herself, and all I can do is endorse Sakura's next antics. Your turn, Sasuke, said the gray-haired man, looking up from his sad thoughts. Besides, he was very interested in what the dark-eyed man could do. A real shinobi will never reveal all his secrets, and it doesn't matter whether he's an enemy or an ally, Fugaku's son blurted out without thinking. Hatake raised an eyebrow in surprise, and then his only visible eye went into a nervous tick. Has it really been screwed up again? Only recently, before the mission, he tried to find out from the harem of the 3 clans what new things she had learned. But the girl didn't say anything to him, leaving the last meaningless, you'll see. And now his student is also there. Is this something they run in the family? Or did you get infected from the fox? Thought teammate Obito. How do you know such words, Sasuke-kun? He decided to inquire after all. My sister taught me. And at these words, the boy proudly stuck his chest forward. For him, training with his sister was a great pleasure. She constantly taught him some new technique, and she herself was improving nearby. The girl's senpai looked at her somewhat disapprovingly after this statement. To which the girl, who had just woken up, smiled guiltily and hurried to turn away. So, the mentor rubbed his hands, Sakura-chan, you're going to learn how to walk through trees without arms, and I'm going to watch Naruto and Sasuke-kun train. A bloodthirsty smile touched his lips, although it was imperceptible under the mask. Just when Haruno wanted to be indignant, she was brazenly abandoned, left alone. She took a deep breath and began to remember what she needed to do to climb the tree. Meanwhile, in a neighboring clearing, Sasuke took the place of honor as a spectator and prepared for the show. He knew very well what a fight between first-class shinobi was like. Other shinobi often came to his brother's wife and offered to warm up together, to which she most often agreed. I hope they don't hold back. I remember how I accidentally saw them training, it took my breath away. It was especially funny to watch how Kakashi-sensei tried to copy his sister's techniques, but he couldn't. It's not for nothing that she's a Fuinjutsu master. The Uchiha thought cheerfully and directed his eyes towards the battlefield. Kakashi and Naruko stood opposite each other. Their breathing was calm and even. It may seem to you that they hated the enemy in an instant, but this is not so. Simply, even in regular sparring you need to be extremely focused to avoid unnecessary injuries. Shall we start with taijutsu? The blonde asked cheerfully. Come on, the gray-haired man nodded, and both took off. They collided and began to try to find the enemy's weak points, as if probing and testing him. The copy one was the first to break the distance and made the seals with lightning speed. Fire release, Royal Fire Dragon. A huge stream of flame came out of his mouth, which soon took the form of this great creature. Neither she nor he had used their trump cards yet. Water release, Wall. 2 techniques collided, and the entire space was enveloped in steam, making it difficult to see anything, Sasuke, for the sake of this spectacle, even activated his Sharingan with 3 Tomo and continued to watch. Shadow Clone Technique. Wind Release, King Serpent. Fire Release, Fire Whirlpool. This time the blonde began the attack. It was truly a terrifying combination of 2 jutsu. If someone else had been in Kakashi's place, he would hardly have come out of this fire alive. From the side I heard a soft click of a tongue. Apparently Sensei again failed to copy Naruko's techniques. I would like to someday achieve such strength that my sister would be proud of me. It's a pity that they will finish soon, flashed through the boy's head. And as if to confirm his words, the very heat of the battle began. Chidori! They shouted from one side. Rasengan! They echoed him. The 2 shinobi rushed towards each other with finishing techniques. In a sense, they could be called signature techniques. There was a powerful explosion, and even Sasuke, just in case, created the first stage of Susanoo around himself. Everything around was covered in a white flash, and it was impossible to distinguish anything. The light hurt his eyes greatly, and the young Uchiha had to close them so as not to lose his sight. And when he opened them, he saw the unharmed Kakashi and Naruko standing in the middle of a huge crater and shaking hands. They did not use their trump cards and did not fight with all their might. After all, it was an ordinary friendly sparring, a kind of warm-up for shinobi. The delighted guy peered for a long time and wondered how they managed not to even get scratched. Deciding not to go into too much detail, he approached the couple and said in his Uchiha tone. Great as always. Let's go, we've probably already been lost. Everyone decided to agree with him and rush to their temporary shelter. The house of old man Tazuna. When a few minutes later they burst into the house, they saw the following picture. Sakura, the architect, his daughter Tsunami and grandson Inari were sitting at the table and were already preparing to start the meal. The pink-haired one was the first to recover from shock and immediately yelled at the whole house. Where did you go? We were busy, Sakura, Sasuke answered coldly. But, the green-eyed one began, but she was interrupted. Better sit down at the table, suggested the architect's daughter. And at that time, the man himself was thinking about how best to ask his question. He finally remembered why the blonde's name seemed familiar to him, but he had to be sure he was right. Therefore, now, he decided to take this desperate step. When the latecomer sat down at the table, he said quietly, Can I ask a question? Of course, the gray-haired man answered him. I remembered for a long time where I heard the name of this young lady. Tazuna pointed to the blondie, and then an inspiration came to me. On the way to Konoha, I often stopped at bars or eateries, and sometimes I was able to overhear interesting conversations. That's what happened that time too. I went into a bar in the Land of Fire and sat down at the bar, ordered myself a bottle of sake. At these words, team number 7 shuddered. I rested, so to speak. Here, 2 men in black raincoats sat down next to me and began to whisper about something. I was sitting close and therefore heard their conversation. Flashback. Listen buddy, do you know the latest news? Said a tall man with black hair and amber eyes, sipping sake. Opposite him sat a man with blue hair and brown eyes. These 2 looked like shinobi. The blue-haired man looked at his interlocutor in surprise. Ichiro, you know very well that this is my first mission outside the village after a long break. How can I know any news? The guy sitting next to him grinned, and a sly smile crept onto his lips. It's just very interesting information, he began, but I'll tell you. Have you heard about Lisa? In response only a thoughtful look and lack of understanding. Come on, Goro, remember. The guy's eyes cleared, and the muscles on his face tensed. I see that you now understand who I mean, Ichiro continued. So, she again found herself in the spotlight. She has about 145 nuke on her account, and this is only in the 3rd year after we learned her pseudonym. The fox skillfully covered her tracks. And the bodies of the traitors were delivered to the Kage. The heads themselves didn't even have time to feel anything. Rumor has it that she is from Konoha. This village is lucky. There are rumors that the fox has the level of Kage, if not exceeds it. She's a real genius. Again, she saved the family, but took nothing in return. Now the most important information for today. The guy broke into a smug smile. I found out her name. This girl's name is Naruko Uchiha. End. Flashback. After this story, everyone fell silent. They were confused, and Nara didn't know what to do. Suddenly, a good idea came to her mind. She wanted to confuse them. Of course, I understand everything, but why did you decide that it was me? You never know how many people have that name, the girl said. Just as Tazuna wanted to be indignant, saying that he was confident in his guesses, he was interrupted by Sakura's voice. She looked at the Uchiha with undisguised disgust in her eyes. Do you know who you say you are? The pink-haired girl said with a threat in her voice. The others just took a deep breath. The blonde, on the contrary, refused, but then. Haruno, meanwhile, continued, you will never be able to become as strong as the fox. I also know a little about her. This kunoichi is described as a blonde girl with eyes deeper than the sky itself and brighter than sapphire, and her tanned skin resembles a ripe peach, and you. Here the green-eyed girl's eyes widened, and she herself began to stutter, you, can't be. Fear and shame settled in her heart. She was scared for her life and ashamed in front of this blonde. The others in the room finally realized who appeared before them. Yes, Sakura. They really call me Lisa. My title is Jounin of the Hidden Leaf. I'm only on this team because of my brother. Naruko was about to go to her room when she suddenly stopped, and, yes, listen. I don't care about Sasuke in love matters. He is my younger brother. I simply cannot afford to have affairs. At these words Kakashi and Sasuke hung their heads. I am faithful to my husband, Uchiha Itachi. And, she ran away. She simply hid from problems, hid from unnecessary questions. She didn't want to plow through old wounds, remember the muted pain. She was afraid and therefore spent the whole night in her subconscious, next to the understanding fox. 1 week later. Today Naruko woke up quite late, and all because she stayed up late improving her new seal. Yes, I shouldn't have sat up all night. The printing, of course, turned out great, but it could have been done during the day. It's good that Sakura and I understood each other. Finally, we communicate normally. Where is everyone? Maybe, strange sounds coming from the kitchen did not allow her to think. She quickly got dressed and went downstairs. In the kitchen, the former Uzumaki saw the following picture. 2 healthy men are twisting tsunami, and Inari is standing nearby and crying, asking them to stop. Let them go. The blue-eyed girl shouted. Loud laughter was her answer. Suddenly, one of the bulls stopped laughing. Listen, didn't the boss tell us to avoid the girl with golden hair? He asked. A look full of fear clarified the situation. But this did not save them. They realized it too late. A few seconds later, they were already tied up and unconscious, and the shinobi was standing at the door. I'll go to my people and leave you a couple of clones. She made a seal, and now there are 3 identical girls in the room. Before leaving, the blonde woman approached the boy and, smiling, said, Fear is a normal feeling, and it is inherent in everyone. It's another matter when he interferes with you. Remember, if you protect your loved ones, then fear will recede, because your heart will be occupied with love for loved ones and the desire to protect them. Inari looked stunned after the unusual girl, who had already disappeared. On the bridge was Team 7 without Naruko and the architect. Opposite them stood Zabuza and a boy wearing a mask of the Oinen of the Mist. The tension between them could even be felt physically. The enemies were ready to start the battle, when suddenly, everyone stand. A loud voice rang out. A new character has appeared on the bridge. The swordsman and his partner wanted to attack, but stopped dead in their tracks. Stop the fight. Her voice again. The daughter of Bloody Habanero, and it was she, slowly walked towards the couple from the mist. The melodious voice again scattered around the area. This is a meaningless battle. We all know who will win. I don't want to fight. Haku, do you treasure your bond with Zabuza? The boy twitched, but answered. Yes. Are you Momochi? The owner of the decapitator hung his head and barely audibly whispered. Yes. Great, she chuckled cheerfully, I suggest you join us upon our return to Leaf. Kakashi-senpai, close your mouth, the crow will fly in, a chuckle was heard, well? The master of silent killing nodded slowly, the same action was repeated by the owner of the ice genome, and now let's watch the show. The failed Namikaze turned her head towards the exit from the bridge. Gato appeared there along with his little gang. I knew you couldn't be trusted, Zabuza, he squeaked, grab them. As soon as the horde of bandits wanted to carry out the boss's order, they were crushed by a huge thirst for blood. One Eye, swallowing, turned towards the Jinchuriki. She stood and smiled angelically, and her ki forced opponents to jump into the water or run in the opposite direction. There, by the way, the armed inhabitants of the country of waves, whom Inari brought, were waiting for them. As a result, Team Number 7 won, and Old Man Tazuna decided to name the bridge Great Naruko Bridge. The guys returned to Konoha, together with Nukmin and Yuki. At first, Haku and Zabuza behaved reservedly, but after an hour of talking with Naru-chan, they began to joke and laugh with the others. The blonde and the pink-haired girl were talking happily. Now they could be called friends. When our company approached the gates of the Hidden in the Leaves village, Izumo and Kotetsu came out to meet them. The Eternal Guards were very surprised to see the Nukmin and prepared to attack, but everything was quickly explained to them and they were asked to take them to the Hokage. The Chunin were surprised by this, but did not show it. They were more interested in one blonde person. She walked ahead of everyone, confidently heading towards the village head's office. Our guests entered a huge publication with the symbol of the country of fire and Konohagakure no Sato. It was bright red with green accents. Approaching the ruler's office, the bearer of the demon gently knocked and entered, hearing the answer, "Come in." The guys settled down inside the room and turned their gaze to the blue-eyed person who decided to take on the role of negotiator. It must be said that the ANBU and Hiruzen had a very unusual and at the same time predictable reaction. As soon as Sarutobi looked up, then. That's the end, guys.